I've always been the kind to keep things in order. Maybe it's the accountant in me, or maybe it's just how I was wired from the start. So, when Mark and I got serious about tying the knot 25 years ago, I insisted on getting all our ducks in a row first, financially speaking. You really think we need one of those prenup things? Mark had asked, scratching his head as he looked over the papers I'd drafted. Mark, it's not about trust, I'd explained, trying to keep the annoyance out of my voice. It's about being practical. We both have careers, assets, and maybe different paths down the line. We need to think ahead. He'd sighed, that long drawn-out sigh he uses when he knows he's not winning the argument. All right, Robin, draw it up however you see fit. Just make sure there's room for love in all those clauses. And so, I did. Our prenup was straightforward: property registered in your name stays yours. Money gets split down the middle. I made sure we were both protected, which seemed romantic in its own bureaucratic way. Mark ended up with the house in his name and I took the apartment. We kept our finances as joint as possible, but when it came to big purchases like cars, furniture, and appliances, I was the one hitting the stores and keeping the receipts, meticulously filed under household in my home office. Why do you bother keeping all those receipts, Robin? Planning to return the couch if we ever split? Mark would joke, but there was always a hint of something in his tone that I couldn't quite place. Every good accountant knows the devil's in the details, Mark. Besides, you never know when you might need proof of purchase. I'd shoot back, with a half smile. Proof of purchase, proof of love, all the same to you, huh? He'd chuckle, shaking his head as he went back to his spreadsheets. That prenup was like an insurance policy we both hoped to never use. Over the years, it became just another piece of paper, overshadowed by mortgage documents and life insurance policies. Our son, Alex, once asked about it when he was old enough to understand such things. We'd been clearing out some old boxes, and he'd come across the prenup among some old family photos. Mom, why did you guys get this? Didn't you trust each other? His young face was puzzled, a frown creasing his brow. I'd taken the document from him, smoothing it out on the kitchen table. It's not about trust, Alex. It's about making sure we're both okay, no matter what happens. It's like wearing a seatbelt: you don't plan on crashing, but you're glad it's there if you do. Now, as Mark and I celebrated another anniversary, the topic of the prenup seemed distant, almost from another lifetime. We exchanged gifts after a cozy dinner at our favorite Italian place. I handed him the smartphone, wrapped in shiny silver paper, feeling a pang of excitement. Open it, I urged, watching his careful movements, a contrast to his usual haste. He lifted the lid, his eyes widening slightly as he pulled out the phone. Robin, this is too much, he murmured, genuinely surprised. Nothing's too much for you, Mark. Happy anniversary. He leaned over, kissing my forehead gently. Thank you, love. Here, I got something for you too. He handed me a small, velvet box. Inside was a beautiful ring, simple yet elegant, its stone catching the light and throwing colors across the table. Oh, Mark, it's beautiful. Back at home, we settled into the comfort of our living room, the new phone and the ring sitting between us like symbols of our modern and enduring bond. The night drifted on with soft music and softer conversations, the kind that meanders through shared memories and dreams for the future. Mark had been on about money more than usual lately. It was always something with him: either the stocks were too low, or the living costs were skyrocketing, something was always off. But this recent fixation on securing our retirement had started to eat away at him more visibly. You see the prices at the store today, Robin? Mark started one evening as I was chopping vegetables for dinner. It's like you need a small fortune just to fill the fridge. We gotta really start patting the nest egg. I sighed, keeping my focus on dicing the carrots rather than his brewing worry. Mark, we've got the house, the apartment, and savings. We're not exactly on the breadline. Can you just ease up on the money talk for one night? Mark's expression softened a bit, but I could tell he wasn't convinced. That's why I wasn't entirely surprised when, later that week, he suggested a walk after dinner, something to get us out of the house and supposedly clear our heads. The evening was cool and crisp, the sun just setting with streaks of orange and pink across the sky. We walked in silence for a few minutes before Mark broached the topic he'd clearly been stewing over. "Robin, about the retirement stuff. There's a way we could secure a couple $100,000 more to our retirement fund." "Easily." I frowned, stopping in my tracks. "Easily? How's that then?" He glanced around before leaning closer. "We could skim a bit from the company accounts. I figured out a way that no one would notice. I'm in finance, remember?" My stomach turned cold. "Skim from the company? Mark, that's stealing." He chuckled, a nervous, off-kilter sound. "It's not really stealing, Robin. It's just reallocating funds temporarily. We'd put it back before anyone noticed." I stared at him, shocked and trying to understand if I was actually hearing this. "Are you joking? Please tell me you're joking." Mark's face shifted through several expressions before settling on a laugh. "Of course, I'm joking. You should have seen your face. It's just a test, Robin, to see if you'd ever go along with something like that." I forced a laugh, though it felt like shards of ice were sliding down my spine. "Good one, Mark. You really had me going there." We resumed walking, but the air between us felt charged, heavy with words unsaid and trust slightly tarnished. I wanted to believe it was just a joke, a poor attempt at humor, but something in the way he'd said it stuck with me. The office had been buzzing with the news of the chief accountant's sudden departure for a week before they announced his replacement. I wasn't prepared for the whirlwind that was Clara, the new chief accountant. Over the next few weeks, Clara made it clear she wasn't happy with how things were running, especially with my work. She'd send back my reports with red marks all over them, asking for revisions on calculations I knew were accurate. Her criticisms felt less like constructive feedback and more like targeted attacks. I started to suspect she wanted me out, but I couldn't understand why. A few days later, during a routine management meeting, I noticed an error in one of Clara's financial projections. It was a significant mistake that could mislead department budgeting decisions. I hesitated, knowing pointing it out could land me in hot water, but my commitment to the company's well-being won out. "Clara, I think there might be a discrepancy in the figures on slide 17, I interjected cautiously as she presented. The room fell silent. Clara's eyes snapped to me, a flash of anger crossing her features before she regained her composure. "Thank you, Robin. I'll review that later." But the damage was done. After the meeting, Clara summoned me to her office. As soon as I stepped in, she closed the door with a click that sounded like a jail cell locking. "Robin, I don't appreciate being embarrassed in front of the entire management team. I don't know what your angle is, but I'll make this clear, you're not fitting in with the direction I want to take the team," she hissed, her usual polished tone replaced with icy venom. The following week, I was called into the director's office. Mr. Henson was a stern man, who valued stability above all else. "Robin, I've been informed by Clara that your performance has been subpar. Given the discrepancies she's reported, we've decided to let you go," he stated, not meeting my eyes. "I've given 20 years to this company, sir. I've always ensured our accounts are flawless. Clara is the one making changes that don't make sense," I protested, my voice cracking with emotion. "Clara comes highly recommended, and I trust her judgment. She's qualified and her vision for the finance department is what we need right now. However, I do recognize your long service, so we'll be providing you with a significant severance package," Mr. Henson added, his tone final. I was stunned. Walking back to my desk, I felt every eye on me, especially Clara's, which held a smugness that made my stomach churn. I packed up my things, the memories of 2 decades fitting into a small cardboard box. I spent the next few months transforming our home. New paint, new furniture, it was therapeutic, almost like putting my life back together piece by piece. But just as I was beginning to enjoy the fruits of my labor, Mark came up with a new plan that caught me off guard. Robin, this renovation you've done, it's incredible. We could make a killing selling this place now. I paused, paint roller in hand, surprised. Sell? But I just finished making it our perfect home. Exactly, it's perfect for selling. There's a luxury house up for sale just a few blocks away. It has a swimming pool, Robin. Imagine that. His eyes were gleaming with that all too familiar look of ambition. Reluctantly, I agreed to consider it. The photos he showed me of the potential new house were indeed tempting, a beautiful, sprawling property with more space than we'd ever dreamed of. Think about it, we sell this place and your apartment, and we can practically pay cash for the new one. With a heavy heart, I put our newly renovated house that officially belonged to Mark, and the apartment that was registered to me. The apartment was bought very quickly, and I transferred the proceeds into our joint account, as we planned. That evening, as I was putting the final touches on my cleaning, anticipating the buyer Mark said was coming to look at our house, he walked in, not alone, but with Clara, my former boss. My stomach turned. Clara looked around smugly. Nice place, Robin. No wonder you're so attached to it. But, it's time for you to pack up your things. Confused, I turned to Mark. What's she talking about, Mark? His face was cold, distant. I'm sorry, Robin. I'm in love with Clara. We're going to be together, and we're going to live here. The room spun around me as his words sank in. You planned this? You used me to sell my apartment and split the money, but keep the house for yourself? Clara chuckled, pouring herself a glass of champagne. Oh, he didn't plan it alone. We thought it through together. The audacity of their betrayal was staggering. But as they stood there, celebrating, I realized I had to act fast. You want the house? Fine. But everything in it is mine. I have receipts for every single item in this house, every chair, every spoon, even the damn fridge. Mark laughed, thinking I was bluffing until I started calling the movers. They arrived quickly, and I directed them to start with the living room. Hey, what the hell are you doing? Mark's voice was loud, panicked as he watched the movers carry out the TV, the couch. Taking what's mine, I snapped back, holding up a folder thick with receipts. See, everything here was bought by me. It's all in my name. By the time they realized I was within my rights, the house was empty. I signed off the last of the movers' paperwork and turned to face them one last time. I'll be sending my lawyer's contact for any further communication. Do not contact me directly again. My voice was steady, my stance firm, despite the chaos. As I walked out of the house for the last time, the evening air felt cool and sharp. Betrayal had torn my life apart, but as I looked back at the stark, empty house, a sense of resolve filled me. They might have taken my heart, but they wouldn't take my dignity. I met with my lawyer, a sharp man named Doug who had a knack for cutting through nonsense. Robin, if we want to nail them legally, we need solid evidence of fraud and, possibly, adultery. That's when it hit me, the conversation months ago, Mark's so-called joke about skimming money from the company. It wasn't just a poor taste joke, it might have been a confession. Doug, I think I know how to get what we need. I reached out to my son, Alex. He was furious when I told him everything, his sense of justice as strong as ever. Mom, just tell me what you need. I'll do anything to help. I need you to stay at your father's for a bit. Pretend you're taking his side, if you can stomach it. I need access to the house while they're at work. The next day, with Alex's help, I got into the house. It was strange being there, like walking through a ghost of my past life. I headed straight for Mark's home office. My hands were shaking, but the anger brewing inside me fueled my determination. Sitting down at his computer, I guessed his password on the second try. Years of shared secrets made it easy. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Files labeled financial projections contained detailed plans for siphoning off over $400,000 from the company, with fake invoices and payments routed to external accounts. But that wasn't all. Tucked away in a hidden folder were videos, intimate encounters between Mark and Clara, in the office no less. Watching just enough to confirm their content, I felt sick to my stomach. But this was the evidence we needed. I copied everything onto a USB drive, my hand steady, but my heart pounding like a drum. This wasn't just about divorce anymore, it was about bringing them to justice. Back in my rented apartment, Doug was waiting. I handed him the drive. "You were right about needing evidence. This should be more than enough." Doug plugged the USB into his laptop, his brows furrowing as he skimmed through the files and watched brief clips of the videos. "Robin, this is substantial. With this, we can not only secure a favorable divorce settlement but also get them prosecuted for embezzlement." The weight of what I'd done, the secrets I'd uncovered, it all settled around me like a heavy cloak. "I just want to make sure they can't hurt anyone else, Doug. I can handle the heartbreak, but the deceit and theft, they're going too far." Doug nodded, his expression grim but resolute. "They won't get away with it, Robin. Not on my watch." After securing the evidence, I didn't just sit back and watch the world turn, I decided to act. Walking back into the office building, I felt a mix of triumph and anxiety. The receptionist looked up, surprised but not unfriendly. "Robin, it's been a while. Can I help you?" "Yes, I need to see Mr. Henson." "It's urgent." She nodded, punching in a call on her phone. "Mr. Henson, Robin Johnson is here to see you." "Yes, she says it's urgent." Moments later, I was ushered into Mr. Henson's office, the place where my career had flourished and faltered. Mr. Henson stood to greet me, confusion etched across his face. "Robin, this is a surprise. What brings you here?" I didn't beat around the bush. "I have something you need to see, and it's about Clara and Mark." His brow furrowed, and he motioned for me to sit. I plugged the USB into his computer, opening the folder of financial documents and the videos. His face paled as he scrolled through the documents, and he looked up at me, betrayal and shock mingling in his eyes. This can't be right. Clara came highly recommended." His voice trailed off as he opened one of the video files, his expression turning from shock to disgust in seconds. "I know. I was just as shocked, but it's all there. Hundreds of thousands siphoned off, plans to leave the company high and dry. And that's not all, those videos were on Mark's personal computer." Mr. Henson sighed, running his hands through his hair. "Robin, I owe you an apology. I should have listened, should have seen the signs myself. You've worked here loyally for over 2 decades. I was a fool, blinded by smooth talk and a sharp resume. It's not just about me, Mr. Henson. It's about the company, the employees who depend on its stability," I reminded him gently. "You're right. I'll call for an immediate audit and a full investigation. We'll get to the bottom of this and make sure they face the consequences. Thank you, Robin, for bringing this to my attention, no matter how painful the truth." Days later, as the audit unfolded, the extent of their deceit was laid bare. Money trails, hidden accounts, and falsified records, it was all coming out. The company acted swiftly, seizing assets and freezing accounts linked to both Mark and Clara. The day they were escorted from the building by the police, I made sure I was there. Standing by the entrance, I watched as they were led out in handcuffs, their heads down, avoiding the eyes of their former colleagues. Clara's face was void of its usual confidence, and Mark wouldn't meet my gaze. As they passed by, I felt a chapter of my life closing. Turning away, I walked out of the building not with triumph but with a quiet resolve to rebuild my life, piece by piece, knowing that the truth had set me free. The divorce was as brutal as it was enlightening. I watched half of everything we'd built together funnel into his accounts, including the proceeds from the apartment I loved. The house remained his, and the bank accounts we once shared now halved, as per the agreement. Despite these setbacks, there was a silver lining. The court granted me 50% of the house's current market value and ordered Mark to pay me lifelong alimony, a small victory in the grand scheme, but a victory nonetheless. I also pursued legal action against Clara, not just for her role in the financial deception, but for her personal vendetta that cost me my job. The day I confronted Clara in court, the air was thick with tension. She sat across the aisle, her posture rigid, her eyes avoiding mine. "Remember all those smirks in the office? Not so confident now, are you?" I whispered when I passed her on the way to the stand. She just glared at me, her lips a tight line. But there was no escaping the truth, and the court ruled in my favor, ordering her to pay me over $35,000 for wrongful termination and emotional distress. Mark and Clara both received suspended sentences for their fraud, a fact that didn't sit well with me, but seeing them barred from holding any senior financial positions was a consolation. They were left nearly penniless after the legal fallout, a fitting end to their deceitful escapade. With the money I received, I bought a modest house with a small garden on the outskirts of town. It needed work, but I saw potential in it, potential for a new beginning, a sanctuary made entirely in my vision. Renovating the house became my new project, my therapy. I tore down old wallpapers, painted walls, and planted flowers. Each brushstroke and each seed planted felt like a step away from my past torments. One sunny afternoon, as I was trimming the rose bushes, my son Alex came by. He walked up the garden path with a smile that mirrored my own. "Mom, this place, it's really coming along," Alex said, looking around appreciatively. "Yeah, it's getting there. Slow and steady, you know?" I replied, wiping sweat from my brow. As we sat on the newly installed porch, sipping lemonade, I told him about my plans for a small vegetable garden in the back and maybe even a little workshop where I could start my woodworking hobby. Just as I began to enjoy this newfound peace, my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't expected to see, Mr. Henson. "Robin, it's good to hear your voice. I was wondering if we could meet up. There's something important I'd like to discuss with you." His voice sounded unusually urgent over the phone. Curiosity piqued, I agreed to meet him at the office the next day. Walking back into the building where I spent so many years of my life felt surreal. Everything looked the same, yet I was so different now, stronger and more resolved. Mr. Henson greeted me at his office door with a warm, somewhat sheepish smile. "Robin, thank you for coming on such short notice." I took the seat he offered across from his desk, my curiosity growing by the second. "Of course, Mr. Henson. What's this about?" He took a deep breath, his hands clasped together on the desk. "Robin, after everything that's happened, it's clear that I made a significant mistake. I let you go, a decision influenced by false accusations and misjudgment of character." I nodded, appreciating his candor, but waiting for the real reason behind this meeting. He continued, "I want to right that wrong. The company has not only felt your absence in terms of skill, but also in integrity and leadership. I would like to offer you the position of chief accountant. It's what you deserve, and frankly, it's what the company needs." The offer took me by surprise. After all the turmoil, going back to the place where it all happened was the last thing I had expected to want. "Mr. Henson, that's a generous offer," I began, weighing each word. "But why should I come back? After everything, it's not easy to just return as if nothing happened." "I completely understand your hesitation, Robin," he replied quickly, leaning forward, his eyes earnest. "You were wronged, not just by your colleagues, but by my oversight as well. I can't change the past, but I am committed to making the future different. And we want to compensate you, not just with the position, but also with a significant financial bonus as a gesture of gratitude for your integrity and the courage you showed in exposing the fraud." The word bonus caught me off guard, but what truly made up my mind was the genuine regret in his voice and the realization that returning could mean influencing the company culture to prioritize integrity over all else. After a moment of silence, in which the weight of his words hung in the air, I finally spoke. "All right, Mr. Henson. I'll come back, but on one condition: we work not just on the accounts, but on rebuilding the company's ethical foundations." A broad smile broke out on his face, relief evident in his eyes. "Absolutely, Robin. That's exactly what we need." He stood up, coming around the desk to shake my hand, and in a moment of unexpected emotion, he pulled me into a brief, heartfelt hug. "Thank you, Robin. I can't tell you how much this means." Returning to my old job as the new chief accountant, I felt a sense of purpose reignite within me. I enjoyed the freedom of shaping my department, instilling in every employee the values I held dear. The financial bonus allowed me even more comfort in my new home, adding a layer of security and satisfaction to my rebuilding efforts.